next is Mary Beth Sullivan, and I was looking at the website, the General Dynamics website, because I wanted to see, well, do they make anything that is not for war? And the short answer, as far as I can tell, is no, because they've got a combat systems division, they've got a marine division, and the icons for those are a tank and a nuclear submarine. Then there is an information service and technology division, and that seems to be about spy and surveillance stuff. And then I saw aerospace, maybe. So I looked at that, and hey, they do. The division of that corporation that doesn't make war, weapons for war, makes what they now call business jets. But last time I looked at the website, maybe in August, those were called executive jets. So I think that must not have been ringing true with some kind of people who were listening. So basically what that means is that the only part of the company that's not making weapons, the only people who can afford anything that's made by that part of the company are the people who are reaping amazing amounts of profits from selling weapons. It's all very absurd and overwhelming, I think. But Mary Beth, many of us know her as a social worker and an activist, but she has also published or written or co-written at least 2 books, because I've seen them in the attic buried. I don't know if that's a former life, but she can speak really well about conversion away from the militarized economy, and really convincingly too, so we're really glad to have her here.
Thank you, Jason. So it is true, and many lives ago, I wrote I co-authored with some friends some books for children, but that's another story.
It still counts, though.
It still counts. There you go. Okay, I have the pleasure of kind of bringing this together to talk about conversion. And so some of what you're going to hear is repetitive, and I think that's a good thing, right? What I want to offer first and foremost is the vision. And what I love, you see up on your TV screen now the image of the main Peace Walk for this year. And what I greatly appreciated, last Sunday, we sat in a circle in my church, my local church, the neighborhood UCC church in Bath. And I feel like I've occasionally talked about conversion within that community, but what I heard in that circle with this incredible enthusiasm, a description of what conversion would look like, really based on Russell Ray's image. That image made its way through Bath, has been making its way through Bath for many, many days now, and it really is capturing the imagination of what we mean when we talk about conversion. The vision that I'm offering to the community here is the vision of the people leading a movement that loosens the grip of the permanent war economy that we live under. What this image offers us is the people demanding that we focus on building a 21st century sustainable energy infrastructure. An image that understands that global climate change is the catastrophe of our century. And it's time that we demand to abolish war. War is our dinosaur. War is destroying the planet. Our dependence on oil, our fighting to gain control of oil and other resources in the Earth's environment is destroying life as we know it. So, it's up to us to sort of demand another way. One of the, I want to now turn to the topic of jobs. My very favorite thing, when I first started dating Bruce Gagnon 100 years ago, I would listen to him talk to a group of people and he would say, "Friends, what is the #1 industrial export product of the United States?" And the answer would be? Weapons. Weapons is the #1 industrial export. And then he would say, If weapons is your #1 industrial export, what is your global marketing strategy?
War.
Exactly. And so for years also, the good news is that there's been research that we have been reliant on. The Political Economic Research Institute at UMass and Amherst has for years done and then redone the research that identifies the Pentagon as the lowest job creator by the numbers. And I can tell you, if you want to read a very simple 4-page article, Heidi Garrett Peltier, she's the co-author of these studies. Brown University has a Watson Institute that is examining the costs of war. So there's a 4-page article on the Brown University's website that tells us this. Fundamentally, Heidi tells us this. For each $1 billion, the Pentagon spends 11,200 military-related jobs can be created. Take that same $1 billion and you can generate 16,800 jobs in clean energy. That's a 50% increase. You can almost double the jobs if you spend that money on education or healthcare or other things. But if you're looking at industry, if you're looking at an industrial base, we are so tied to the weapons industry. The only way to loosen and change things up a little bit is to take some of that money back. Heidi estimates military spending by the federal government in the United States. We've spent $2.9 trillion since 2001, just with the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. $2.9 trillion, and this article was written a couple of years ago. That means the US is spending an average of $109 billion a year on those 2 wars alone. The net job creation could have been 1 to 2 million more jobs if the US had not been at war. All right? Sort of piggybacking on the information we just got from Leslie. So what do the people do about it? The people speak with clarity. We want to abolish war. What? Slavery was once at the center of the economic, political, and social fabric of our nation. We look back at the abolitionists as the heroes of our time. I invite each of you to stand strong to the idea of abolishing war. It has to be a people's movement. War is too lucrative to the elite political class to engage such a conversation. But it must be done. And it's not just Donald Trump. Remember, drone technology and drone killing accelerated under Obama's presidency. Did you know that he had a kill list? I read an article that said, where he commented about himself, who knew that I would get so good at killing? That I would be so good at killing? Under the Obama administration, the decision was made to upgrade our nuclear weapons stockpile to the tune of $1 trillion over a 10-year period. The 2016 article I read wondered aloud why this issue never made it to the presidential campaign trail. Do you remember this being debated? Not even in Congress, not in the newspapers. How do you feel about being excluded from that conversation? $1 trillion to upgrade the nuclear weapons that we have currently. Why was that not debated? Because they all agree. They've got nothing to disagree about, right? Finally, I want to just go. We could talk forever about the chaos of the Pentagon, but I think it's important for us to understand where the future of war is going. The United States has an AFRICOM, or the African Command. Mm-hmm. I read a parenthetical statement in Time magazine. The Time magazine article was emphasizing, yeah, it's a little bit hard for Donald Trump. It's hard to be in charge of so much war, right? AFRICOM is managing 129 special operations a day. Did you know that? This is a parenthetical phrase. Are they assuming that we already know that? Right? Do we know that 129 special operations a day? What the heck does that mean on the continent of Africa? I can tell you what it means. Africa has the resources we need to build our smartphones and our computers and all the rest, and we're going to be competing with China in that continent if we're not already, and that's the future of war in this country. It's madness. Our clarity, your clarity, global climate change is the problem of this century. Let's break our dependence on oil. Let's create a world here in our own country. Let's create a world here in our own country that understands the real safety concern for the entire planet is global climate change. So let's make that our priority. Let us demand that that is the issue that we as a nation engage. We talk about conversion. We talk about the idea of taking these factories that are building weapon systems and building something else. And people for years have looked at us and said, that's so crazy, how could that happen? Let me take us back to World War II. We weren't ready for World War II. We didn't have the equipment and the materials that we needed. Franklin Delano Roosevelt took over the industrial base of the country, and he said, we are going to build for war. Whatever you're making, if you're making silk underwear right now, you're going to be making parachutes for the war effort. If you're making lipsticks, you're going to be building bomb casings for the war effort, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Remember the old days when we actually made consumer products, right? It could happen again. I'm not saying that we should give Donald Trump the authority to rewire all the industry in our country, but the fact of the matter is we need leadership around this. It's not going to come from the political class. It has to come from us. So I'm out of time, but I want to go back to the quote that Leslie gave. I have it too, and I want to expand on the quote that she offered because I think the whole quote is worth hearing. Again, this was the general running the country of the United States in the 1950s, who says to us, every gun that is made, every warship that is launched, every rocket that is fired signifies, in the final sense, a theft from those who hunger and are not fed, those who are cold and are not clothed. This world in arms is not spending money alone. It is spending the sweat of its laborers, the genius of its scientists, the hopes of its children. The cost of one modern heavy bomber is this: a modern brick school in more than 30 cities. Imagine that clarity how many years ago, 63 years ago. It's 2 electric power plants. It's 2 fine, fully equipped hospitals. It's some 50 miles of concrete highway. We pay for a single fighter plane with 500,000 bushels of wheat. We pay for a single destroyer with new homes that could have housed more than 8,000 people. This, I repeat, is the best way of life to be found on the road the world has been taking, says General Eisenhower. This is not a way of life at all, in any true sense. Under the cloud of threatening war, it is humanity hanging from a cross of iron. That clarity existed 63 years ago. Conversion occurred before that. It is a vision. We've got to hold it. We have to pray for it. We have to bring it with life and with love and with clarity to the world we live in. We can abolish war and we can solve the problem of our time, which is global climate change. We can do it. We must do it if we're going to survive the 21st century. So thank you all for listening, and I urge you to come and keep this conversation alive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Google the Peace Report. Become a subscriber to the Peace Report. Will Griffin is someone who understands far too painfully the realities of war, and he has a way of communicating through short videos, the truths of our time. Pay attention, and the truth that speaks to you, forward it, share it, pay attention to it, and spread it around. He's a good example of the people were always, the gray hairs in here are always saying, what's the younger generation? We need them. Well, they're there, and they're doing it, and he's doing a beautiful job of it. And it's our job to kind of hold that up and spread his message out there in the world, because his message is our message. It's the next generation. It's time to pass the baton on to him and share that. The Peace Report. thepeacereport.com.
There he is.
Okay. Thank you, Mary. My name is Will Griffin. I am an Iraq and Afghanistan veteran. Yeah, I created the Peace Report roughly a year ago, 13 months ago, and on Facebook I've gotten over 25 million views since then. So there's an audience out there. I don't know what they're waiting for, but maybe it starts with a video that has links to other information that they can link up to. And what I really want the Peace Report to be is the news source for the anti-war movement. So I want to highlight not just Veterans for Peace, but I want to highlight what you all are doing here in Maine and the struggle that you're fighting against for this conversion of BIW, and what's going on in San Diego when they're fighting against the largest military air show in the world, and what's going on the local level of everywhere across this country, because I think there's so many great things going on, and we're all fighting the same fight, right? We're all fighting the same struggle. So that's what I try to do, and I try to let the whole world see what's going on. And I just made a video with the protest we did here in front of BIW, and so yeah, I'm trying to. How many hits does it have so far? It's got about 8,000 views right now. So it's all right.
So the other 63% of the American public has a Facebook account. So for those of us who resist this kind of digital media, it's important to remember that 2 out of 3 Americans rely on this for information as well as for connectivity.
So the other thing I want to highlight about the Peace Report, but also Bruce Gagnon's blog, Organizing Notes, that what both of these gentlemen are doing is bringing the whole world to us. Jeju Island is alive through the videos. Jarrett Gohl and his community do brilliant videos that then get just kind of distributed through the world, and those sites bring it to us. And there is, if you ever feel any sense of despair about what we're doing, to tune into what's happening on Jeju Island and see the life and the vigor and the energy and the music and the love that is manifest in the way they are demonstrating and resisting the powers that be. It's energizing, and it gives me the motivation to keep hanging on. So kudos to Jeju Island and that community.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.